All right, I guess I am getting started. Thank you for the introduction, Felipe. Is that it? Okay, soothing sounds of Felipe. So I'm Rex, as was just said, and this is Cruising the Cannabis Highway. I talk about a series, thank you, Mouse. I talk about a series of breaches in the large cannabis point of sale provider. Who am I? I'm a full stack, primarily front-end dev. For a long time I've been doing that, but I'm not as great as I should be considering a long time, but you know. Been to a handful of hacker summer camps, really like them, it's a good time. I'm not in InfoSec directly, but I do work for a few InfoSec companies doing front end, and I'm also just nosy as fuck. Goals, I hope to give you an overview of the cannabis industry. I hope to touch upon a compelling narrative involving disclosure. This will definitely be an OSINT heavy talk, or OSINT. I'm not even really sure how that's pronounced. No elite exploits or anything like that, but I do some cute things with some command line tools and bash scripts, if anybody cares about that sort of thing. And hopefully this will foster a discussion about InfoSec and cannabis. So why should you care, though? Well, for one reason, every time I come to Hacker Summer Camp, there are several talks about why you should care about responsible disclosure, and hackers are really into that sort of thing. Also, this is a really pivotal moment for the cannabis industry, so there's a lot of new tech coming in, both soft and hardware. There's a lot of money exchanging hands, and because of weird federal regulations, a lot of that money is kept on site or moved just in armored trucks or delivery courier people in duffel bags. People have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in cannabis taxes just in a duffel bag. That's happened. Also, there are a high number of policy touch points. There are a lot of lawmakers and lobbyists active in the space, and a lot of the software makers are lobbying as well, which to me feels like a conflict of interest, but who's to say, really? But if we don't all pay attention, we might get stuck with the bill, figuratively and literally lobbying lawmakers. No. And also, this is an untapped market, I think. As much learning and drunken partying as there is at Hacker Summer Camp, I also always invariably see large business deals taking place. So maybe someone wants to get on that. So without further ado, cannabis. The sick nugs you smoke with your close friends and whatnot, but not really. We're talking about the cannabis industry, so think less your burnout stoner neighbor, and more so your rich friend's more affluent uncle, because in putting this talk together, and also a village I'm doing at DEF CON about cannabis, I've talked to a lot of dudes who have really extensive cannabis portfolios in terms of companies they own, and they don't even smoke. Last year, it was a $9.2 billion industry, so I would venture a guess that the supply chain is a little more complex than you thought. It looks something like this. So just to walk you through it very quickly, not very quickly really, but we start with the grow ops. You can probably ascertain what that is from context. And, oh, by the way, the black lines are data, the green lines are cannabis. So the government tracks cannabis in what's called seed to sale at every transfer point. So from where it's grown, it gets tagged, particularly with radio tag or whatever the numbered plastic padlock equivalent is in cannabis. And that data gets entered into the system at the government level. Usually it's state, but lower municipalities can be very active in this too. The grow ops pass the product off to processing facilities to turn it into wax or vape or to make pre-rolls or whatever. They also have to pass data to these compliance systems. Same thing when they pass it to a dispensary. The dispensary has to track who bought what in these state-level compliance systems. The dispensaries are tracking all kinds of data about the customer as they sell to them, and they're usually using some sort of sales analytics, so passing all that data wholesale. They also are probably going with a dispensary tracker that is like cloud hosted or perhaps provided by the government, but it's through a third party. And then also some grow ops even are using like grow analytics as well to get maximum yield. That stuff's been going on for a few years in agriculture, but I think given the monetary value in cannabis, people are making great leaps and bounds there. And then we also have ancillary hardware, which are like vapes, and I'm also including anything a prosumer grow op might use, like an automated nutrient feeder, for example. And a lot of that stuff's becoming smart and internet connected, so look out. Some major players in the space. We have Metric, a subsidiary of Franwell, which is a general, sort of like a GE, general tech company. They do a lot of hardware. I've just cherry-picked some stats here. They've tracked 4 million plants and 3 million parcels. We got BioTrack THC. I believe the original company is still around. They're just called BioTrack. They started providing a system for dispensing medications at hospitals, like in that episode of Nurse Jackie where she gets her, never mind, MJ Freeway. They originated the phrase seed to sale. They've been around the longest. They went straight into cannabis, but their management level, their management team has a lot of, not just, but I would say, more Silicon Valley oriented experience. And also, they pretty much have all the market share. They're pretty much the big players in the game. And that was the status that was looking to be unchallenged until this thing we're talking about now, which is a breach on or about November 19, 2016, with no loss of data, according to a third-party security auditor. But no, we're actually talking about 2 breaches in 2 months around that time. Loss of data? No, we're actually talking about 2 breaches around that time. A third potential pivot into government infrastructure. Definitely the loss of personally identifiable PII and employee information, several month outage of service, and the resulting attackers tampering and modifying cannabis restock delivery routes, identities of route drivers, sensitive locations of core operations, etc. Basically a clusterfuck. They tried to get in front of it. These are some words from their marketing department. We were the victim of a malicious criminal cyber attack, which does happen. I can't fault them for that. I say this only because there are a number of rumors flying around that this was not a hack and not an attack. So basically, what does it say about you when your customers think it was a DevOps fuck up? And on January 8th, our clients began to experience the effects of this. The system went offline for all clients who also had no access to the site. I'll skip this for time. It's anecdotal. But basically, I think they did a bad job of alerting their customers. These are some pissed off dispensary workers who basically just showed up to work one day and were like, hey, guess what? You can't work. One of my friends who works at a dispensary, she told her boss the system was down. He said, you're an effing liar who just doesn't want to work. I mean, I said fuck a bunch of times. I don't know why I said effing just now, but. Okay, right? I'm looking into all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, why is nobody talking about this? That seems like a big deal, especially for a company that's dealt with millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, millions of pounds of whatever. A big statistic. But that's inaccurate because a lot of people were talking about it. Everything from national print-oriented news publications down to mom and pop blogs that focus on the cannabis industry. But I'm dealing with a lot of speculation thus far. I'm reading a lot of articles that are not firsthand. I'm talking to some people who have some knowledge, but they're also not directly related. So I figure I got to get better sources. And actually, there were a lot of data points here. If I'm just looking at everything I can find that has a concrete date and maybe some actionable or objective information, so I put them all in a spreadsheet. That's a timeline. And since everyone was talking about it, get all those in a spreadsheet too. But then back to Reddit, because again, anecdotal, but like super insightful, I think. Some people were pissed. A lot of people were going back and forth about the nature of the breach, whether a breach actually happened. And from what I understand, some people got subpoenaed by MJ Freeway. Well, who got subpoenaed? Reddit and Google specifically. But I guess they felt a number of people on the board, and I kind of felt this way too, had some early information that was kind of curious and maybe not coincidental. Another thing that was mentioned with this hack is that a bunch of information got leaked, like I said, but also source. And it had been put up on GitLab, taken down rather quickly, but some people mentioned that it was also available on the Pirate Bay. What you're seeing now is the result of a wait of about 4 months and some intense fiddling with peer-to-peer seeds and trackers and all that stuff. And to me, that's actually in alignment with what I saw on things like Reddit, because people were like, who really cares about this leaked source code? It's just bad PHP. Everybody knows that's insecure. But then somebody suggested, do another search. And I did. I think it was Mr. Glass, actually. And I found several more uploads. So I'm like, okay, this is curious. You got people saying they don't give a fuck. You got people saying, people uploading this repeatedly. To me, that's sort of an interesting conflict, interesting tension in the narrative. That second one, 4 hours to download. But still didn't have a lot of seeds. So when I look at the source, not even look at the source, when I just look at the directory structure, it's not a great start for them, I mean. I'm okay with it, but it's terrible for them because it's every product they have, every state-level product, every dispensary-level product. And also, so like I said, I don't have a lot of InfoSec experience, but I have been a consultant for a few years, by which I don't really mean a freelancer, but more so working for a consulting company for a bunch of different other client companies. And one thing I can tell you is that if you have a team, CC Leaf, well, Leaf Data Systems, that's their state-level thing, right? CC Leaf, Nevada Leaf, there's like a Washington Leaf here. Basically, to me, that looks like a team that had a core product and couldn't decide on a development process or strategy that would allow them to have a core and add on custom customer functionality. That is kind of a bad smell, in my opinion. A note on architecture. This is sort of a stack, I guess. But so we're talking about these in the middle here mostly. You got MJ Freeway's Gram Tracker, which was their old Drupal-based thing with a bunch of plugins that couldn't be updated for like 7 years. That's what got hacked, most likely. You got their MJ Platform, which was supposed to take its place and be more secure, supposedly. And then you have all sorts of third-party ones, right? But those have to integrate with the state-level ones for the state compliance tracking. And a lot of times the selling point is you are automatically integrated by using these at the state level. It will automatically ship the data there. Then you have a bunch of dynamic websites that tie into APIs for these trackers. So maybe to display your current inventory on your site, or in-store menus like in McDonald's, except with weed. Your vendors or suppliers, so your grow op may just push their data directly into your dispensary tracker. Or a mobile app for customers to order, that happens too. But basically what I'm getting at is much surface area, much. And your data may pass several times through MJ Freeway stuff. That's food for thought. I'm gonna skip this for time too, but basically these are just transparent minutes of meetings from the Washington Liquor, State, and Cannabis Board, and talking a lot about their dealings with MJ Freeway and stuff like that. And here is them talking about the ramifications of the breach. Okay, one thing I did with the source code, I harvested Git emails. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Git log, custom format, minimum amount of manual cleaning and deduping. I plug that right into Recon NG, which is a great tool. I'm using the Jigsaw plugin, and even though the API key costs like $1 bajillion a year, if I had it, I would buy it. So, a lot of reading here. I got blog entries, tweets, Reddit posts, podcast transcripts, training manuals, Git commits, and I found a few interesting things. First off, I'm noticing some behaviors. Is this a person committing directly from the Git UI? I think so. You also have someone committing from the dev virtual environment, right in the Vagrant. Not a big deal, but again, kind of code smells in my opinion. And you have a lot of remote contractors, and this is just the A's. Every name here starts with an A. Imagine how long the whole list was. Gmail, Coherent Solutions, a bunch of other companies. Who knows where they are? I mean, I do, because I'm nosy, but if I were a less principled person, I'd do something like, hey, dev. Well, first, I would make a Gmail, right? I would fudge the name a little bit, and I would send this sweet spear-phishing pretext here. I'd be like, hey, I was looking at some of your commits lately, trying to rebase, and I couldn't because you have these weird commits from the Vagrant environment, and it just doesn't work right. Could you please not do that? Also, could you make a patch of your local copy of branch name and send that to me, since, be a nice guy. And I was vindicated, sort of. I don't think they did exactly that, the attackers, but they definitely copied somebody's email, switched 2 letters around, and started mailing people from there. And then MJ Freeway subpoenaed Google for that information. Not sure if they got it. But perhaps most interesting was this letter from a competitor to, hold on, let me plug in for power, and hopefully not fuck up the video feed. Okay, so this is a letter from a competitor to all of the Washington State cannabis industry, which just that alone seems kind of like a big deal. And they don't even have a blog on this site, so they just put that one page up, which stands out to me. And they're like, here, why don't you download a hard copy of this same page, because I want you to have it and take it away. And regarding what's actually in this thing, I'll try to be quick, but it's like a really, really fierce tech software diss record from this one company about MJ Freeway. There's tightness over missed deadlines with the handoff from MJ Freeway from BioTrack to MJ Freeway regarding the Washington State state tracking cannabis, what's the word? Sorry, brain fart. The contract, the state contract, right? BioTrack lost it to MJ Freeway. They weren't happy about it. MJ Freeway missed some deadlines. BioTrack was not happy about that either. And then BioTrack also started pointing out, hey, MJ Freeway also got hacked. And it's very dangerous for us to commingle our reputation with somebody who's so insecure. So they included a copy of a letter from a Google forum for dispensary owners and workers. And somebody got a data ransom email from a spoofed email address, Leaf Data Systems, which is, by the way, a subsidiary or related company to MJ Freeway. And MJ Freeway, like Leaf Data Systems does the state level stuff, MJ Freeway does the dispensary tracker, and somebody called them out on being a conflict of interest, and the marketing person said, well, Leaf Data Systems is a separate company, so it's okay. But yeah, so this email was spoofed. They're offering access to the information for pittance, really, or maybe it was just like a sampling of the database leaks for just a couple of Bitcoin, or a fraction, right? Like $8 in Bitcoin. And I said I was gonna do some like lay person, like try to figure out who it is maybe, but maybe that's not necessary. They just gave themselves away. I didn't make that, I swear, just lined up. But jokes aside, right? Why all this animosity? I've worked for consulting companies, like I said. I've met some pretty asshole C-level guys who would talk all the smack in the world about competitors, about customers, about employees, but even they would go out in public and bash a competitor because I think they realize like being involved in that drama is a Pyrrhic victory. So I'm like, my gut says there's something else going on here. And as it turns out, there is. MJ Freeway sued the Health Department of Puerto Rico and BioTrack because they lost a bid to BioTrack for that contract. And MJ Freeway said, hey, wait a minute. According to Puerto Rican rules, you actually can't have a company win a Puerto Rican state contract if they have a felon on the board, which BioTrack did. A Mr. Steven Siegel. Not that guy, but that would be like really awesome. And I wouldn't even put it past him, really. But yeah, it was some fraud stuff, really nasty, involving, I don't know, some mail fraud, financial stuff. But basically, well, I can't get into this for time either, but if you come to my DEF CON village, which is the Cannabis village, I can get more into it there. But essentially, some strange things happened even after this, right? I don't know exactly what happened with this suit. I think maybe MJ Freeway actually did end up winning, potentially. But if we look at the timeline of things a little bit more closely, right? This is a very dense area of the timeline. BioTrack THC gets highest score in Puerto Rico and wins Puerto Rico contract. And I misspelled Puerto Rico, nice. MJ Freeway brings suit against Puerto Rico over bidding, and those are like a month apart, a month and some change, right? Siegel and Brian McClintock sell shares to holding companies, so they divest, and somebody else gets on the board. 11/7/2016. On 11/16/2016, MJ Freeway releases their next level software at a big cannabis convention here in Vegas, and 3 days later, they are hacked, and everything is leaked. And then they're double tapped a month and some change later. Those things seem very close to me. I'm not a professional, your mileage may vary. I don't want to say it was aliens, so I won't. I just want to play with this stuff. And how am I doing on time, actually? The phone went off. No, I think I'm decent on time. Yeah. I just want to play with this stuff, really. I can't get too far into this because of time either, but Docker made it very easy. I mean, I still had to fiddle with Docker, but better than fiddling with a bunch of other things, I know. Conclusions. Who? Foreign state actors, maybe. I don't know. I mean, you think I'm joking, but really, a lot of those contractors were from pretty interesting places. And what could earmark the downfall of your Western capitalist bourgeois ideals than your fledgling vice industry falling on its face? Especially when it's worth several $1 billion. Was it right-wing anti-weed activists? I don't know. I was at HopeCon a few weeks ago, and a bunch of right-wingers showed up there. I wouldn't put it past them to hack a very poorly secured cannabis site. Competitors, maybe, I don't know. Or just bored teenagers, advanced persistent ones. The cannabis space has an interesting set of concerns. Regulation and compliance done poorly equals increased surface area. There's almost like an inverse relationship there. obscenely competitive, so people cut corners to be first to market because they want that market share. And you can't rely on the feds to save you, but when can you? I don't know. If you want a deeper technical dive, there's going to be someone else giving a talk really just about the surface area and exploiting it. But again, maybe you won't be too interested in that because it's like PHP and Node stuff that you've probably heard before at DEF CON. But he will be covering, that particular speaker will be covering some other point of sale systems as well in the cannabis space. I'm going to give this talk again. It's going to have some more information in it. I'm going to go a bit more into the whole Puerto Rico fiasco and some other things. And we are going to be at the Flamingo in the Valley of Fire, and there's going to be a whole bunch of other cannabis-related talks. So check it out. Thanks to B-Sides, Soldier of Fortran, Mr. Glass, and Mouse for helping us get some scheduling stuff sorted out. Any questions? That dude.
I know you didn't really mention who. You kind of have some speculation, but is there any indicators on parts of the attack that would lead to any particular entity?
Not that I'm aware of, and to be honest, I can't really say anything more specific than that. However, I am really interested in the meta because I started looking into as well and doing some like OSN stuff on the third-party security auditor, and they didn't really seem to be anybody I'd ever heard of. Again, I'm not like a hardcore InfoSec dude, but nobody else seemed to hear of them either, and the reports seemed to be kind of crappy. So, oh, let me not. I'm on film. What's up, dude?
Do you know if I'm pretty long, so
yeah.
Do you know if the double tap,
Mm-hmm.
they have the same TTPs or were they using a different methodology? Just out of curiosity.
He said regarding the double tap, so there were like 3 or 4 different penetrations. 2 or 3 that were definitely in MJ Freeway's infrastructure, and then 1 that was in Washington State's, and people suggested that it was not, that they were not, maybe not related. I think perhaps they were, but I can't speak to that with actual, forensic evidence. Sorry.
No, I understand.
Oh, wait, but one thing I will say, so the dump, right? There was a timeline and there were official, notifications about these breaches. And when I look at the Git commits though, and just the file name even, it has a date in the file name that was like a month and a half beyond anything that they reported being breached. So I kind of think the attacker was just like kind of stunt a little bit, like be like, we're still in here. We have a foothold and we're not letting go and we just want everybody to know. So that's kind of why I kept poking around at certain things too. Anybody else?
Did you start with responsible disclosure? Was that one of the things that you were talking about? And how did you responsibly disclose any of this information?
No, I was more so talking about MJ Freeway being responsible about their disclosure because they disclosed and then they said, oh no, wait, that was wrong. But that was our third-party security auditor's fault. And then they like redisclosed several times, changing the story each time, like in a major way, saying none of your data was lost to all of your data was lost and our source code, and you don't have a dispensary tracker for 3 months. Sorry. As far as I'm concerned, I just found available information on the internet. I also deleted that repo, and EFF said it was very important that I let you guys know that. So.
So it's interesting because you brought up the Washington State tracking system. Do you think we're going to see any breaches in the future that are going to be pertaining to like vehicle movement? Because we know how currently it's next to impossible to deposit cash anywhere. It's always constantly moving. And I'd be more interested as an attacker knowing when those vehicles are going out of the dispensary so that I could actually, be a criminal organization and put a hit on it, et cetera.
Word, as am I. So one thing that's interesting is that in certain states, you have to log that information with the state, even if, it's just publicly available. And then in some states where it's not publicly available, it's in this breach. And then I would say I don't know if the routes that the delivery people use to bring the cash back or drop it off wherever they store the cash, that stuff's not going to be in there, but you do know where they're going to be. I believe in a lot of states it includes their license plate number. So that's, go to the dispensary, look out for that person, backtrack all the way to the grow house, follow that person and see. They may be the same person delivering the money. I'm working with some people now. I'm not sure if it's going to go through yet, but there's going to be a guy, he's a mayor, he's going to speak at the Cannabis Village. He may work with me on a seed to sale or seed to safe penetration test. Some people express interest. We're going to, hack into or to a grow op or something. So we may try to stage it first such that we first can track the person to the grow op and do sort of use an entry point that way. So that's something you might be interested in. Green team. Yeah, no, green team. Exactly. Or no, wait, purple team. Hey, any more questions? Thanks for showing up, guys. People.